The legislature in Oregon is in discussions about this possibility. So while we're here in the nation's capital thinking of this as a national action, there's actually a lot of grassroots energy at the city level and the state level, and we're going to find that those areas that take this up, if you will, a combination of city and state policy as well as federal policy, are going to be the places that test the strategies and create the lessons for the rest of the country. We can amplify that through the electric vehicle deployment bill that I've been on with Byron Dorgan and Lamar Alexander. But it is going to be the results in the field that will help guide us. And truly, we don't have a precise answer because we don't have the feedback. I think that the Chevy Volt strategy of having a backup engine and way to recharge your electric vehicle if you run out of juice along the way is a very interesting recharging strategy. Others believe that the weight involved of carrying that additional backup strategy will be too much of a compromise, and the way to go is all electric. But we're going to be able to have a real test between the deployment communities and the different technologies in the field, and we'll have a tremendous amount of feedback.
Okay. I want to thank our panelists for joining us today to talk about how we get to, if not energy independence, less energy dependence. Senator, thank you very much. Thank you so much. And finally, our last panel is going to take a look at the issue of jobs and economic vitality. Let me ask you to introduce Rich Wells. He's the Vice President of Global Government Affairs and Public Policy of the Dow Chemical Company. Rich was named Vice President of Global Government Affairs and Public Policy in October 2009. He's responsible for overseeing government affairs strategies in each of the company's major geographies, as well as public policy, issue management, and development of connecting with the public and the outside world, not to mention the Congress, as you're seeing here today. So welcome to you. Thanks for coming in from Michigan. And Trevor Hauser, is Trevor with us? There's Trevor. Trevor is the Director of the Energy and Climate Practice at the Rhodium Group, a specialized advisory partnership based in New York, conducting original economic research on complex global themes, also a visiting fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics here in Washington, D.C. And finally, Celia Canfield. Come on up, Celia. Clean Energy Director, Project Director, Small Business Majority. She manages the Small Business Majority's Clean Energy Research and Business Outreach, and is a longtime small business owner, consultant in clean energy sustainability, and has worked with West Coast Green, Sustainable Life Media, and several other green media properties. So thanks to you all. We are mindful of the clock. We're going to get you out of here on time. We're going to try to let everybody have a thought and develop some of the dialogue that we promised if we can here. So with the eye on being succinct, and thank you for rolling with our Senate schedules today a little bit, let me let you begin, Rich, with
first off, delighted to be here to share some of our thoughts in this space. Introduced as the head of government affairs for Dow Chemical, but my background is I'm a chemical engineer. I worked my way up through Dow as an engineer, and I still think like an engineer, which drives all my counterparts crazy. But when I think about this issue of clean energy and climate change, I take it back to its root and the recognition that our economy, in order for our economy to grow, quite frankly, our dependence on oil and fuels is going to have to grow, and the amount of CO2 that we put in the environment is going to have to grow, because today they are connected. In order for our economy to grow, we need more energy. That's a fact. And in order to get more energy, over 80% of our energy comes from burning something, comes from burning a fossil fuel. So if you start with that in mind, you start saying, how do I solve that? And the recognition that really we have two choices to solve it. One is we just slow the economy down, which is palatable to no one, as we've seen in the last couple of years, or we learn how to break that connection. And that's what we're all about, is breaking that connection. And that's where the industry comes in, that's where science comes in, that's where the industry I come from, chemistry, fits in. Because we're going to have to find those technologies that allow the disconnection between CO2 emissions and GDP growth, that allows our economy to continue to grow, but allows our dependence on fossil fuels to shrink. And we're working on those things today. As an example, we've heard about solar roof panels. At the Dow Chemical Company, we've developed a solar roof shingle. It actually looks like a shingle. I've got one that, try not to make it as a commercial, but it actually looks just like an asphalt shingle. It is installed just like an asphalt shingle. You don't need a special installer. So you cut the cost of the installation. You make solar much more affordable to everyone. And we're working on lots of other things as well. But in order to do that, we need the right stage set for us. We need a price on carbon, quite frankly, to get people to look at this kind of technology, because you talk about energy costs, you got to talk about energy price. And a lot of the reasons we aren't moving to some of these is that the per unit cost of the energy we get for it is more expensive, but it does allow us to use less. And so when you take usage times price, you get lower costs, and that's what we're all about. And that's the kind of things that we're working on within our industry, and we're up here talking to our senators and congressmen about. Thanks.
How much less is that roof shingle than a sort of standard solar panels that we see installed so often?
It's got a lot of variables in there, but roughly around 30%.
30% of the cost, or 30% cheaper?
30% cheaper to put them on your roof.
Okay. Welcome. You want to talk, if you would, for a moment about this bill in particular and the implications for energy legislation on the job picture?
Sure. We did, the Peterson Institute for International Economics did a study on the American Power Act, and particularly looking at what the implications in the near term would be, trying to answer the question of whether passing energy and climate policy in a recession is good economic policy or bad economic policy. And the traditional thinking has been, if you raise costs of electricity for consumers, if you raise the cost of electricity for consumers in the middle of a recession, that's bad economic policy. And what we found was the opposite, that one of the consequences of the paralysis of this building over the past couple years on this issue is that industry faces a lot of uncertainty in the energy industry. And so you have billions of dollars that's sidelined right now, not getting invested, because they don't know what the regulatory landscape is going to look like. And that providing that certainty would unlock about $11 billion a year additional investment in the power sector over the next decade. Now, over the long term, we have to be frank about this, we don't know whether the costs are going to outweigh the benefits of reducing CO2 emissions and going to a clean energy economy. There's good arguments both directions. And that uncertainty about the long-term costs has been why, for the past 3 decades, this has been a tough political issue, and why this building has been unable to act.
Sorry, go ahead. Did you want to just wrap that up? Or
Go ahead.
You're done. Okay. I want to turn to some of your questions. And Celia, let me put this first one to you. This comes from Don Mile from Raleigh, North Carolina. Where do you see the greatest growth in job creation? What effect will it have on strengthening the economy from this?
Well, I represent America's 28 million small business owners at Small Business Majority. And by the way, they're not of the attitude the Chamber and the NFIB would have you believe. And why do we know this? Because we poll and research small business owners, and we just pulled a poll out of the field in the last month. 61% of small business owners said that they want to be part of a clean economy future. They think it's a paradigm shifter, and they want to be part of that paradigm shift. And in fact, a majority of them think that this legislation is a good thing, even while they believe it's probably going to increase their costs of doing business. Now, that's not surprising to us at Small Business Majority, because small business people are very close to their communities. They hire their family, and they live in their communities, and they react and respond to what they're hearing in their communities. And they act locally. They're also entrepreneurs, and with all due respect to my big corporate panelist here, they actually hold 14 times more patents than big corporations do, which means that as entrepreneurs, they know what the future looks like. I love the stories we've heard here. There's a woman here named Ariana from just north of Detroit. She was a real estate agent with a market that had, well, plummeted, shall we say. She redefined her career and now has a green signage company and is growing and hiring employees. We hear these stories all the time. Contractors who are out of work are now becoming home performance experts. We're finding entrepreneurship alive and well, but as a woman in Pennsylvania who manages a ski resort said to me, give us an opportunity to be the entrepreneurs and the small business people by giving us a future that we can count on, one that we can really grow and thrive in.